MVC3 includes some new action results that you can take advantage of. This includes an HTTP not found result, which is essentially to return a 404. A new type of redirect result that will result in an HTTP 301 permanent redirect, and an HTTP status code result. You can use the status code result to return a specific HTTP status code from the HTTP specification. Let's take a look at these in Visual Studio. First, we'll return the 404 status code. 404 is a status code which means I could not find the resource that you were looking for. You've probably run across this error if you've tried to access a web page on a server and that web page doesn't exist. But in an MVC application, you can truly think about a 404 error in terms of resources. For example, let's say that you have an application that's displaying accounts, and you've decided that a URL like account/details/15 should retrieve the account with an ID of 15 and display that to the user. In that case, you'll probably have an ID parameter passed into your action method, and if the user enters an ID that you cannot find in the database, it's perfectly reasonable to return that 404 and say, we couldn't find this resource. In other words, we couldn't find this account that you're looking for. In order to do that, it's very simple. There is a helper method that you inherit from the base class. It's called HTTP not found. If we build this application, then we can come out into the browser and refresh. And in this case, Google Chrome, they'll say, oops, the link appears to be broken. What's really happening behind the scenes, if we use a tool like Fiddler, to trace the traffic is this is the request I just sent off, and you can see that the result was a 404 not found error. As for redirect results, ASP.NET MVC has always had the ability to do a redirect result. We could say if someone hits this controller action method that we want to redirect them to pluralsight.com. That means if I run the application and I go to that URL, and I'm going to put a dot in the name so that Fiddler can see this happen, I'll ultimately end up at the pluralsight.com website. If we open up Fiddler, what we'll see is that this request returned an HTTP status code 302. Now 302 is a redirect. It tells the browser to hop on over to pluralsight.com, but it's what we call a temporary redirect. This causes problems for people when they really want the whatever is looking for this resource to permanently go to pluralsight.com instead of coming to our server. Some people who do search engine optimizations, they prefer a permanent redirect in those types of scenarios. That's a different HTTP status code, and fortunately, it's very easy to do in MVC3. All we need is to invoke a slightly different helper method, which is redirect permanent. Still pass in that same URL. So let's build the application. Run it again. This time I'll put in the dot /home/results. Again, we end up at pluralsight.com, but if I look in Fiddler, this is an HTTP 301 moved permanently. That tells the client they shouldn't even bother coming back to my server at that particular URL anymore. When they want whatever they're looking for when they've come here, they should really go to pluralsight.com. Finally, if one of these redirect or not found status codes doesn't suit your needs, you can always return a new HTTP status code result. Pass in the status code that you want to use, like a 415, which stands for media type not recognized, and even pass in a custom description. This is the HTTP status code then that will be sent down to the client.